Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Salatu wassalam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask him to bestow his peace and blessings upon our last and final messenger Muhammad ibn Abdullah, and upon his family and companions and all those who follow him until the day of judgment. Ameen. Today's chapter, which I'd like to explore and contemplate with you, is Surah Duha, which is a short surah and a beautiful one as well, very profound. And in order to fully appreciate this chapter, we need to look at the context in which it was revealed. So in the early part of the Meccan era, the Prophet ﷺ was receiving revelation every pretty often. So there wasn't ever any long gap between two sets of revelation. However, at one point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala withheld revelation for a wisdom. And it was maybe around 2 weeks of a gap. And the people of Quraysh, obviously, they noticed this. So they started saying, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has left Muhammad, Allahumma salli wa sallim alayhi, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is upset with Muhammad. Right? Rabbu Muhammad wadda'a. Wadda'a Allahu Muhammadan wa awqala. That's what they start saying. They start spreading this around Mecca, and you can assume the Prophet ﷺ's anxiety and his stress because of that. So the Prophet ﷺ started to cave into their propaganda, believing that, you know what, maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did leave me, maybe he is upset with me. And that created a great amount of anxiety. Now when Surah Al-Duha was revealed, this is his state of mind. He is in an anxious state, he is in a stressed out state. And Surah Al-Duha serves as a chapter that counsels someone who is going through such a stress, such a hardship. And that's why I chose it for today's session, because there are two main things that we can get out of this, among other lessons. And that is how we build tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as well as how to apply shukr in our lives, how to depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and build that dependence, and how to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins the chapter by saying, وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى, by giving two oaths. Last session I mentioned, what is a function of an oath in the Arabic language, and just to refresh our minds, and for those of us who weren't here last time, an oath in the Arabic language is meant to emphasize a certain point by invoking something that is considered to be glorified by the individual taking the oath, right? Again, an oath is emphasizing a point by invoking something that is glorified to the person, right? So for example, if we want to stress a point that we are honest in what we are saying, we will say, Wallah, I take oath by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this is the case. Right? We are emphasizing the point by invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name, which we hold as dear and glorified. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala utilizes this quite a bit in the Quran to emphasize a certain point. Right? Now, since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no one above him, he takes oath by his own creation, which he has the right to do. But what he chooses to take oath by, there are two things we need to recognize. Number one, who the creator of that thing is, the entity is, and that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when Allah takes an oath by certain natural entities around us, what it means is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pointing to something that is quite critical or quite crucial in our daily lives, in the ecosystem, in the cycle of this universe. He is pointing to something that is fascinating in of itself. So that's the first thing, which points to also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who created it, how fascinating he is. The second point is that there is some sort of function that this entity plays in the role of our lives or in this world that somehow fits into the concept or the point that's being made. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى, by the dawn, by the morning sun. The duha is a time period right after sunrise, until about 10-15 minutes after sunrise. Right, so today sunrise is at 5:50 a.m. So from 5:50 to around 6:05, that is the duha time. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking an oath by that time. No, I'm sorry. Let's back up a little bit. Duha is from sunrise, 15 minutes after sunrise, until 15 minutes or so before dhuhr. That is the time of duha. So from around 6:05 till around 12:40 in our time today. That is the time of duha. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking an oath by this. And the second oath, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى, and the night when it completely covers the earth or the place we are living in, like we are about to enter now after Maghrib. So he's taking oath by these two times. What does that have to do with the context that we are in? Well, there are two things here we need to recognize. First is how these two times affect our lives. When do we go to work? In the time of duha, right? Which is a time where we change what we were doing, that is resting, staying at home, being with the family, and going out and working and seeking provisions and doing what we need to do. It changes what all of society is doing. And the same thing at nighttime. Once night comes, people go home. They go home to rest. It's bedtime. We have our routines. We might have a snack or a bite or dinner, whatever the time is in terms of the seasons, right? Again, you see this shift. You see a shift occur in what we're doing. And what is enforcing this are these two times, these two phenomenons, the sun rising and the sun setting. And who is the one who placed that system where it is? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And it's interesting, we have the adhkar al-sabah al-masa, the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the dhikr in the morning and the evening. And why is it the morning and the evening? And constantly you find in the Quran, وَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ بِالْعَشِيِّ وَالْإِبْكَارِ, right? بِالْغُدُوِّ وَالْآصَالِ. These two times are constantly mentioned. The time after Fajr and the time before Maghrib as well. There are times, these two times, where there's something going on, and it goes back to the point I'm saying, that our lives or what we're doing is going to change. We're going to change what we're doing by going out and working or going home and going back to our families. And therefore, it's as if these two times are an important time to make dua and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help for what we are about to do and make progress in our days. So that's the first point, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed this, and it has such a profound effect on what we're doing. And this leads to the second point. It's also a symbol of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sovereignty, that this is His kingdom. He is the one who put these laws, these natural laws in place. And these natural laws are affecting us so much that it changes what we're doing in our day. It's showing us that He is the King. He is in control of what's going on. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduces this chapter, the Prophet ﷺ, when he is in an anxious state, he's reminding him of these 2 points. That Allah is the sovereign, He is in control of everything. Do not think Quraysh, as they kind of utilize this or take advantage of this cut or this delay in revelation, and they're going around mocking you and making fun of you and ridiculing you and harassing you. Do not think that they have power over you or that they were given power over you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is still in control. And as He placed these 2 times and these 2 functions, the sun and the moon, in its proper place with such wisdom and precision, know that any time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals verses in the Quran or delays the revelation, then there's a wisdom in that. He is still the sovereign, He is still the one in control, and everything He does is based off wisdom. And going back to the first point, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now introducing this to the Prophet ﷺ, telling him that as you see the world function the way it is, in a proper way, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking care of you by making times, giving you a routine in your life, making certain times that are suitable for you to go out and makes it easy for you to go out and work, and times where it makes it suitable for you to go home and to rest. Know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed the same meaning in your life, right? وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not forsaken you, he has not said goodbye to you, nor is he upset with you. Remember, going back to these points, what Quraysh is doing to you is not a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's anger upon you. Keep that in mind, right? What does that mean? Well, the verse following that elaborates it just a little bit more. وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. The next life is better for you than this life. This is a very profound verse. And it's profound because it really shifts the way we view the world around us, the way we interpret and process events that occur in our daily lives or in the greater world around us. The next life is superior than this life. What does that mean? It means that, O Muhammad, والسلام, you see how Quraysh is harassing you. That's not a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's anger upon you. That's not the sign. What we need to understand as people living in the 21st century is that there are certain things, right, that are detrimental or kind of create barriers between us and worldly pleasures. And there are barriers that are created or are put between us and our afterlife. What is a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's anger is the latter, not the former. Meaning someone who is going through a hardships in this life that is harming their ability to enjoy this life is not a sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is upset with that person. The way we interpret the world around us is, how is this affecting my afterlife, my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So when Quraysh is mocking the Prophet ﷺ and doing this, the question that is posed and being elaborated on in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, look, their ridicule and their mocking, is that harming your position in the next life? Is that harming your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And the answer is obviously no. On the contrary, all of that is giving him reward in the next life. So when we view the events of our life, it is important to understand what is going on through the framework and lens of this verse. It is about the next life, not this life. And therefore, if I am going through a hardship, before I start saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forsaken me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala isn't answering my dua, Allah, where is He? Why isn't He doing this? Why is He putting me through this? Ask yourself the following question. Is this getting me closer to Allah or further away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is this better for my next life or worse? That is the sign. Through this, we determine whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing this as a punishment or not. And obviously in the case of the Prophet ﷺ, it wasn't. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching him, do not be deceived by the actions of Quraysh. They can say what they want to say. They can abuse you the way they try to. They can harass and torture your companions. But that is not a sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is upset. Why? Because all of this is feeding into their status in the next life. Because there are so many people on their phones. If you want to be on your phone, don't distract me while I'm doing it. Muhammad. Alright? No one's pressuring anyone to be here. اللهم صل وسلم على محمد. وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. The next life is better for us than this life. Shift the way you view the world around you. And always view events, certain things that happen in your life, your current status, through this lens. Is this better for me in the next life or not? And to put it in a different perspective, when we enjoy this life, the same question can be asked. Is this getting me closer to Allah or not? Someone got an amazing promotion and a good opportunity, and that's bringing them a lot of wealth. Right? Well, a lot of people will say, yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with me. Right? Why would He give me all these worldly blessings if He's not pleased with me? But what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in Surah Al-Fajr? Right? فَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانِ إِذَا مَا ابْتَلَاهُ رَبُّهُ فَأَكْرَمَهُ وَنَعَمَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَكْرَمَنِ. And you'll find people who, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been gracious with them by giving them worldly pleasures, right? And they are now in a financially stable situation and they're rich, etc., they say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed me. Right? He has been gracious to me. But 2 verses down was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, Kalla. That's not the way it works. whether this wealth or this position or this opportunity is a blessing isn't determined by whether it brings you more luxury in this life or not. It is whether it brings you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not. That is the way we understand, from a spiritual perspective, understand the events in our lives. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching the Prophet ﷺ and teaching us as well. The next life is better for us than this life, for obvious reasons. The next life is eternal. This life isn't. The next life has an infinite amount of blessings to offer. This life is so confined in what it can offer. And even if someone has millions and millions of dollars, right? The question is, how do they get those millions and millions of dollars? How much time and energy did they put to achieve that? How much stress did they go through to achieve that? How much stress are they going through now to protect that wealth? Because that wealth can go away, right? Especially if it's investments and whatnot, it creates stress. You have so many loops and challenges and bumps and hardships that need to be endured in order to become a millionaire, right? So when you compare that to what a person can achieve in the next life, there's just no comparison. The next life is better for us than this life. وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give you until you are pleased, right? Now, in our times today, when capitalism is the mode of society, right, where it's all about the wealth, it's all about the money. If you want to be successful in this life, you have to have a lot of money. Why? Because that's capitalism, at its core. That's the life we live. Don't think capitalism is just a system of economics. It's also an ideology. When you look at where capitalism came from, it came from philosophers who tried to understand, okay, what's the best way to maximize profits or to increase our economy or make it flow better, etc. It is an ideology that was taught to people. It is about the profit. It is about free trade, but who cares about how that free trade might affect greater people? Now, of course, in Islam, we have free trade, right? But the extent to which capitalism applies it is, almost without limits. Someone can take interest and charge people interest, cause hundreds of thousands of students to go into debt, some of which will commit suicide, right? That's okay because now I'm making profit. That's capitalism at its core. That's what it is. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't give you until you're pleased. The average, Westerner is going to understand this as Allah is going to give me so much in this life. Because that's the mode that we live in. That's the culture that we live in. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet He's going to give you until you're pleased, what did He give him? Right? What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give the Prophet? Companions. A ummah that is unrivaled in its numbers. So massive. That is what the Prophet ﷺ wanted. Scholars who hold the banner of La ilaha illallah. People who are sincere to the faith. That's what the Prophet ﷺ wanted. He was given the choice. Do you want to be a prophet and a king, or do you want to be a prophet and a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And of course he chose the latter. Right? What the Prophet ﷺ wanted is to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to live in the afterlife in the maximum possible position and level. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى, telling the Prophet ﷺ, well, we got to understand this in light of the previous verse, that the next life is better for us than this life. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's going to give you until you are pleased. Right? When we think of rizq, for example, provisions, we say, oh Allah, give me rizq, oh Allah, rizqni, right? Give me, Allah, bless me, give me wealth. What is rizq to us in our modern day definition? It's almost always money, right? Money. Oh Allah, give me money. But what is rizq in an Islamic sense? And there's nothing wrong with asking for money, right? Just kind of make that clear. But from an Islamic perspective, what is rizq? Health is rizq. A good family is rizq. A good spouse is rizq. Good children is rizq. Knowledge is among the best rizq, among the best provisions, right? So when you look at the supplications in the Quran, I don't think there's a supplication that's in the Quran or Hadith that asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for more wealth. It's not about that. But there is for knowledge. But there is for a good spouse. But there is for, good children. Right? And among other things. We need to expand our understanding of rizq, provisions, what this life has to offer, to go beyond wealth. Yes, wealth is a blessing. It is a great blessing, right? But only if we use it in a way that channels into the well-being of our next life, and not just be something that we enjoy this life and then it's gone. Or, in an even worse scenario where it takes us further away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's pretty bad. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the Prophet ﷺ until he was pleased. And we know that that was fulfilled. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the next 3 verses, أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى. The function, or one of the functions of this chapter, is to counsel the Prophet ﷺ. And in doing that, the Quran teaches the Prophet ﷺ how to counsel himself if another situation like this were to happen, and also the reader as well. Here you have a situation where the Prophet ﷺ felt that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was upset with him. He couldn't understand why their delay occurred. He couldn't understand why these people are now doing this to me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by not revealing this, is causing this to happen. Right? How do we process this? How do we understand this? Right? The way to understand it isn't by preventing these events from happening, but rather understanding it in a way where it gives meaning and purpose to it. Okay? What do I mean by that? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, as he goes on in these verses, he says, أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى. Were you not an orphan, and he gave you shelter? When you were young, your father died while you were in the belly of your mother. And then your mother died when you were an infant. And then your grandfather was taking care of you, passed away when you were around 6 years old, or 9 years old. I believe his mother died when he was 6. And then his uncle Abu Talib took him in. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding the Prophet ﷺ of something very important. Did you not always have shelter? And it wasn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the one who provided you with that shelter? وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى. Were you not unaware of the religious realities, or aware of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, and he gave you guidance? The Prophet ﷺ had this longing to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to know who he is, to the extent where he would seclude himself for periods of times on Ghar Hira, on the top of that mountain. Right? Climbing that mountain is no simple task. It's no simple task. And he would go there, seclude himself, being away from his wife, and in a cave without, who knows if he had food or water. And every time he needed to go down, right, to take a shower, to eat, or to resupply, he had to go down and go back up again. All of this for what? Because he wanted to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He had this longing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that, did you not have this longing to learn? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught you. He took care of you there. وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى. And were you not poor? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you sustenance. He married you to Khadija radiallahu anha, who hired you. Right? And now you had a full-time job where it was sufficing your daily needs. Did he not do that all for you? What does this have to do with the concept at hand, or this chapter? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, O Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not always take care of you before? The answer is yes. Do you think that he will give you the blessing of revelation and then just say goodbye? That's it. As he took care of you before, he will always take care of you. And this is how we build tawakkul, dependence on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This powerful tool, and it's a tool of counseling our hearts and our minds, to help us process certain events. And the way to do that is to reflect on our past and look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped us, how he gave us, how he protected us. Even if it's a simple event, like the time where you almost hit that car going at a very high speed, but at the last second you were able to maneuver properly and swerve out and go into another lane. Now, what if there was a car in the other lane? What if you didn't catch that at the last second? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected you there. You remember that time where you were in college, for example, and you had these tests and you were very stressed out. You didn't know if you were going to pass, but you got through it. Or that illness, for example, and you were healed, etc., etc. Each person has their own situation, right? Think of those. And the more you think of it, especially financial hardship, because financial hardship, there's subhanAllah, it's something profound in the heart. And we always tend to get out of it. We get in financial hardship. Oh my God, how am I going to deal with this? Yet you find that in a miraculous way, you can't even understand and process how you got through that, how you even managed, right? You get through and you go back up. And that happens once, twice, 3 times, until it becomes, you're almost conditioned to that. If there's a hardship, okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always gotten me out of it before. The next time it happens, I'll be okay. No need to stress. Even though it's uncomfortable, but no need to stress. The more we are able to reflect on our past and find these events, find these moments, find these scenarios where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took us out of a hardship, the more we'll be able to build that trust in our hearts, to where we will tell ourselves the next time something happens, I know I will be okay because I've always been okay before. And there's a way of amplifying this concept, and that is by utilizing dua. When we add dua to this concept, it helps further deepen this meaning, because now I played a part in seeing this manifest itself in my life. So when the next time our young adults are in college and they have finals, and they have tough finals, for example, or they have the MCATs that they're going to take, or some standardized test that will determine their future, and they sit there making dua, and they make dua, and they make dua, and they passed. Now that individual played a role in this process of building tawakkul. I've always made dua. I made so much dua before. I made dua for this, and I made dua for that, and I made dua for that, and I've seen most of it actually come true. That's quite powerful. That says a lot. So the next time something happens, you know what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always taking care of me with my dua. He has always honored my dua, and I'll be okay next time something happens. And that's why it's very important to make a lot of dua. Make a lot of dua. Ask for things, even if it's not urgent, even if it's not needed, right? Even if it's something, if it comes, great, but if not, I'll be okay, whatever, it's not a big deal. Always make dua, because the more you can see your dua answered in your life, the more it builds a trust with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more it builds love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Especially the young youth. Make dua for a good spouse. Even if marriage is still 10 years in front of you, make dua for a good spouse. Make dua for good kids. Make dua for good education, for a good job. Because when you see this actually come to life, it says so much. And it helps reinforce Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's presence in our lives. Today youth are struggling. A lot of people are struggling. Where's Allah? I just can't see Him. I'm not experiencing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in my life. I just don't see Him in the world around me. Right? But with dua, that's very powerful. It's the biggest statement. And that's why it's the soul, the essence of worship. So these 3 verses teach us how to build that tawakkul. And then the concluding 3 verses tells us how to react to these blessings, and how to be grateful. فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. As Ya Rasulullah, you were an orphan before, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took care of you. فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. As for orphans, do not overpower them. You were an orphan once, and Allah took care of you. Pay back that favor. Allah gave you a favor. Pay it back to the orphans. Take care of them, and don't be overpowering to them. Take the blessing that you were given, and be thankful by applying it to someone who is now in your situation before. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with knowledge. Teach it. That's the way we are grateful for it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed you with wealth. Help those who are in need. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed you with health and a strong physical body. Well, help those elderly people who don't have that anymore. Or help the disabled individual who can't. Use the blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you for that sake. Right? If you are a person of influence, for example, you're now a manager or of a high position in a job. Well, look for people who need jobs. Look for them and share that blessing which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. So as for the orphan, do not overpower. And as for the beggar, do not tell them a harsh word. وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. Don't tell them a harsh word. Someone comes and begs. My position, if beggars, 99.9% of them are liars. That's just the reality. 99% of beggars are liars. Right? At least in the eastern part of the world, even here, we have these beggars who come every Friday, and they're sitting there, right? They're not poor. This is their job, and we tell people don't give them, because when you give them, they come back, and people give them. SubhanAllah, Muslims, They have the soft heart, subhanAllah. I mean, that's not saying something bad about them, but the reality is most beggars are really not in need. Except, unless they're homeless, right? Obviously, if they're homeless, they're in need. So we might not care to give a beggar. We can give charity on the other hand, but we are told here not to be harsh to them. Do not tell them a bad word. If someone says, can you give me some money? Tell them, as we say in Arabic, Allah ya'tik. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you. And then finally, وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. As for the blessing of your Lord, and here it means Islam, the great blessing. So, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى, He found you, and you were unaware of the religious realities, and He guided you. As He blessed you with Islam and with the Quran, go about and speak of it. Talk about it. Tell people about it. Because it is a blessing given to you. It is your job, it is your responsibility to share it with others. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with Islam. What we believe is the truth. And we are quite convicted that this is the truth. We have that conviction. This is the truth. That's a great blessing. Because someone struggling or doubting their faith, it's not simple. It's not easy. It does a lot to their mind and does a lot to their heart. You have that blessing, you've been given it, then make sure you share it, especially with your family members, your kids. We do a very poor job in educating our kids in Islam. We do a very poor job in educating ourselves in Islam. Allah gave you the blessing of Islam, then go learn about it. Islam isn't a religion where we just do some rituals and some actions and that's it. Islam is Iman is heavily based in knowledge. Heavily based in knowledge. And it's very unfortunate the average Muslim can't differentiate between a wudu that is correct and a wudu that isn't correct. That's not who we are. We are people of knowledge. We know why we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. We're not taken by these silly philosophical arguments. If God is almighty and if God is all powerful and God is all good, why is there evil? That's a silly argument. It's a very narrow, very lame argument. Well, is God only all good and only all powerful? Is He not all wise? Is there not a next life? It's a very silly argument, but unfortunately a lot of youth are now taken by it. Yeah, you know what? That's right. Why isn't He doing anything? And it creates this doubt. So how do we apply shukr in our lives? By taking the blessings which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us and sharing it with other people, especially those who are in the situation we were in prior to that. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us understand this chapter and allow it to be a source of counseling for our hard times. Remember, the chapter starts by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indicating His sovereignty over this universe and how much He influences our actions and our lives. He then tells the Prophet ﷺ, do not be deceived by their premise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He stopped revealing to you, that He is upset with you. And this is one point I forgot to make. Right? They made a premise that was based off an evidence. Right? Allah has stopped talking to you, that means He is mad at you. That is their argument. It's a premise and they supported it with an argument. Right? But this is a completely baseless premise. Why? Because the next verse elaborates. The next life is better for you than this life. Meaning in this time, in this delay that occurred, and because of their harassment, that actually increased your rank. That gave you more hasanat. So it was a good thing for you. It's a completely false premise. And for us, we need to understand that sometimes arguments are made that's based on completely false premises. For example, Islam is a violent religion. Why? Because there's jihad. Right? There's a premise. What is jihad? Jihad is violent warfare. Right? This is the argument. Therefore, Islam is a violent religion. However, when you look at Muslims all across the world, are they violent people? It's a completely false premise that they try and support with an argument, but it's completely false. Unfortunately, a lot of Muslims don't catch this, and they start saying, oh no, jihad is defense, and no, it was just for that time, just for that content, that's it, there's no other jihad. Right? They completely ignore our 1200 years of history and whatnot, and all the jihad that occurred. Right? Look, war was a reality of life. War is a reality of life, but that doesn't make a people violent. Every country has a code of war. They have laws. The UN has international laws that regulate war. If war was this intrinsically bad thing, right, or violent thing, then why are there these laws, and why is it condoned by, or why is it accepted by the UN and international law, right? So be careful of these false premises that are put in the minds of people, and we tend to just assume it's correct, and that's it, take it for granted. And there's so much of this going on in Western academia, and that needs its own talk. Inshallah, one day we will get into that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us that the next life is better for us than this life, and therefore we should view and understand this world and its events based on its consequences in the next life, not this life. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us how to build tawakkul by encouraging us or challenging us to look in our past and find how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has helped us and provided us and given us and taken care of us, and then to be thankful and grateful for that blessing by sharing it with others who are less fortunate. Jazakumullah khair wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.